Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps agencies streamline their proposals in the cloud and get faster sign-off.
Welcome to the 11th episode of Agencies Drinking Beer, a podcast where we interview an agency owner, learn a valuable lesson, and get a buzz on. On today's episode, we're interviewing Carman Pirie from Kula Partners in Halifax, Nova Scotia. He's going to tell us why agency owners should hire someone else to market their agency. So you're not feeling good. Usually when I'm not feeling good, the last thing I want to do is drink, and yet you have a bottle of bourbon next to you.
Yeah.
That's called Grandpa's Old Medicine, isn't it?
It is. It's very much an American thing, too. Bourbon. Yeah, I didn't think beer today would be a good idea with my belly's feeling. So
Yeah,
a little
bourbon.
Bourbon and water will keep things rolling. Here,
That'll do the trick.
Open it.
Nice.
There we go.
Isn't that a nice sound?
It is a nice sound.
Do you actually pouring that in water?
Yeah, but that's too much water. I got just a little bit of water.
So strange.
Oh, bourbon and water is a huge drink back home.
So let's jump into it. No banter this week. That was enough banter. Let's get right into the meat of it all.
The meat.
The meat. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to answer some questions from our listeners. The first question I have is from Trisha Littlefield, who runs the Simple Web in Ontario, Canada. And she posted this question on Twitter. She said, do you have any ideas for overcoming hesitation? A company has had 2 firms let them down, and now they're nervous about a new website.
First of all, I actually spoke with Tricia for quite some time last week. Yeah, before she signed up. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
She's been at it for a while. Yeah, freelancer. Really wants to grow her business. So yeah, it's interesting. It's great.
So what would you tell her? We've been in this situation before when we ran Headspace. You know, you've got a client who they need a website, and they've had 2 people let them down. They might have, overcharged, under-delivered, or sometimes they won't answer their phone calls, when they need changes done or that sort of thing. So they're a little shy, a little nervous about hiring another company because they think we're all a bunch of scumbags there to rip people off. How do you convince that client to go with you?
Well, I think a lot of the problem. Actually, I was talking to Rob this morning about this, our lawyer, because I was saying there's a lot of gray areas of things that we don't know, and it reminded me of our business. A lot of, again, it can be a gray area for people, and they don't quite understand what they're buying. And I think educating them is very important, so they feel comfortable with what you're suggesting. They don't have to understand the technical aspects of it, but as long as at a high level they know why you're doing what you're doing and being very transparent along the way. And that's why Basecamp's great and tools like that. It's all about transparency, and unfortunately, as we experienced, people came to us after having terrible experiences where their expectations weren't being managed, and they were getting this bill, and they didn't know what for. They didn't have a product yet, but they didn't realize and understand the stages of that. When I was talking to Trish last week, I told her about how our process, a big part of our process was that upfront piece and the planning phase, and she got a lot out of that.
Mm. Yeah, my recommendation would be along the same lines is to propose a very small project. If you go in trying to pitch a $10,000 or a $20,000 project with your client when they're already really worried about getting screwed, they're probably not going to bite. But if you give them a $500 project, something really small, just to get them in the door and earn their trust, it's a nice way to do it. I mean, it's kind of like dating somebody who has been cheated on in the past, and they're nervous about trusting somebody else. You can't just talk them into trusting you. You have to give it time and give them a chance for you to earn their trust.
Yep. Date them before you take them to the altar.
Exactly.
You know what I was going to say, but
no, I am innocent. Yeah, well, hopefully that answers Trish's question. The next question we're going to go over is, it's a bit of a longer question. It's from Joe Ross. I don't know where Joe is from, but Joe said, I wanted to pick up on one of your points. So this is, we send these kind of email drip courses about how to write proposals that people sign up to. So Joe asked, do you recommend booking a meeting, but sending over the proposal in advance to discuss? Because if you present the proposal in the meeting, there needs to be time for them to digest the information. And also, once you have a chemistry meeting, do you book the meeting in straight away to avoid the prospect objecting to that meeting? And he said, he or she, I'm not sure if Joe is a he or she because it's J-O, but anyway, pardon me. Said, I must admit, due to time pressure and geographic location, I've neglected to always present proposals. And also, prospects might have specified that they want to receive the proposal by email. And kind of a fourth question in there, if you use a phone call to talk through the proposal, do you have any tips on how to effectively present the proposal over the phone? Isn't it unlikely they would it's unlikely they would close then and there, so would you automatically book a follow-up call? Thanks for sharing. So there's a lot of parts to this question. So I'm going to kind of break it down into a few things. So the first thing he asked about is how far in advance do you send a proposal to a client? Because I think it is, now nobody does this all the time. A lot of times we just send proposals, and sometimes it's an RFP, God forbid, and you have to send, you have to sometimes mail it. But if at all possible, I think it is better to present over the phone and not give the client a chance to see anything. Because if they see anything, the problem with just sending a client a proposal is when of course, they're going to go look at the budget first and foremost. And ultimately, it's going to come down to, do I want to spend that or not? They're not going to read through it first. And the other thing is, if something jumps out that they don't understand, they're going to get this negative feeling like, oh, they want to, charge for that, or whatever it is they don't understand. They're going to have a negative feeling about the proposal. And if they don't have you there to answer that question right away, then they're going to have that lingering feeling of doubt. So I would say send it to them like 5 minutes before the phone call. And that way they don't have a time to digest it. You don't want them to have a time to digest it. You want to steer the way they look at the proposal on the phone, and then they can digest it after the meeting.
Yeah, I think for, say, the majority of your projects, if your bread and butter projects, yes. But, I mean, if it's a large project and it's someone that's within driving distance, everybody, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, it's worth it to set up, and especially if it's with a committee or board. Sometimes it's nice to go. Don't send anything in advance. Go there and use a projector or whatever and walk through it. It all depends on the intricacy of the proposal and the ask. And like you said, RFPs are a nightmare. They wanted the bounded printed units, like 10 printed units to go to each committee member and blah blah blah. That was always a nightmare, and they want those sent in advance. But for general proposals, yeah, I agree with you, Kyle. I mean, send it and follow up right away. Make sure you schedule it too, so they don't make an excuse that they can't talk.
Yeah, that's the next part of the question was, how early do you book the pitch meeting? And I would say, as soon as you can, even if it's right when you first have that chemistry meeting with the client, and you feel like you get a good feeling, like, okay, I want to give a proposal to them. See if you can book it right there. Hey, what are you doing next Thursday? And or right when you get back to the office, look at your calendar and book it, but don't leave it to the day before.
Some people take too long to turn proposals around, which is to your point. I mean, there are tools out there on the web, some I've heard of, that you can create proposals fairly quickly. And they'll be impressed. Get it out quick, make sure it's detailed enough. But, a proposal is a high-level document to sell your services and also sell specifically what they want. But, again, it's still high level. Yeah. I remember in meetings, Kyle, you remember this. They'd buy the proposal and buy us into what we're doing and our approach and whatnot. But the scope would change. And then that's when the statement of work comes in.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is.
Yeah, some people might think we're kind of hypocrites, too, because our app, you can send the proposal through our app, and then you can track when they open it and stuff. And so you say, well, I thought you said don't send it to them, book a meeting. But the thing is, number one, not everyone's going to do that. So we might as well create a tool to make it easier for them. But But also, you can still book a call and then, send the proposal through our app or whatever proposal tool you use, send it through their app. So you can have your cake and eat it too. And then another question was about, if clients are local or they're remote, do you book a phone call or do you book a meeting? Now, I think we're of kind of two minds about this. You're more of an in-person guy and like more face-to-face. Me, I would say just in-person meetings take longer, right? There's travel time and all that stuff to account for. Having to get dressed is a big problem for me. I don't like putting on shirts.
He's in his underwear right now, which is kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, I am most of the time, but the nice thing is if you do a phone call, all you need to do is put on a shirt, even if it's a go-to meeting, so they think you're wearing pants. But even if they're local, you can still book a phone call and just get it done with 15 minutes. That's me.
No, me, I've always said death by meeting, so don't get me wrong. I am more of I guess maybe face-to-face person in a lot of ways, but like I said earlier, I think it's more if it's worth it. If it's a $500,000 project, huge project with committee, or even $100,000 project, depending on what. I mean, it's all relevant. I mean, it's all relative. Sorry, but I mean, if you can do it via Skype or a phone call, it's more efficient, especially for the smaller projects.
And Joe asked, what if they don't want a meeting? They just want you to email the proposal. I would say that's a red flag, because if they don't want a meeting to talk about the proposal, it means A, they're just shopping for prices. They're just collecting proposals the way you would collect, I don't know, stamps and whatever people collect. They're not really serious about working with you. They just want to see how much it's going to cost. And then also, even if they do work with you, but they didn't want a phone call to talk about the proposal, well, how committed are they going to be throughout the process when it comes time to work with them, when it comes time to book meetings for, understanding design challenges and changes and all that kind of stuff? Are they going to be easy to work with? So I would, if a customer or a client actually outright refuses a meeting to talk about the proposal, I would consider not taking them on as a client.
I agree. If they outright do say that or state that. Other side of the coin, again, it might be a project where, you've already done a good job up front. You say you met them at a trade show or they're a warm client or a contact, and they say, hey, listen, this sounds great. Let's go for it. Just send me a proposal. I just want to see in writing in the numbers we discussed, and just send it along. And what's nice there is you can use, a lot of apps now have signatures, and that's when you can get the deal done quick with a good warm contact.
Right. I love you working in the Proposify sales pitch.
Hey, there are other apps out there that offer that too, man.
It's okay. I mean. What was I going to say?
About the warm contact.
Yeah, if they're somebody you already worked with and have a good relationship with, well, I mean, it's different. I mean, I think if this is a new client you've never worked with, there's a lot of sniff test going on.
Big time on both sides.
Sniff, yeah, exactly. And then the last question was, can you close the project in the pitch meeting? And I would say it depends. Like sometimes you can. Sometimes a client, especially if it's a small client or you're just talking to the president or the CEO, they might say, all right, I'm ready, how do we go from here? Other times they're not the final decision maker and they need to go back and make a decision with their team, or you're presenting to a small committee, committee, then it's going to be hard to get them to sign on the line that is dotted. But again, that's where online signatures come into play. Whatever system you use, even if it's right signature or any sort of thing like that, is get them a contract as soon as they give you the verbal yes or the email that says let's proceed, is get that contract into their hands and get them signed off. Don't book the kickoff meeting until you at least get a signed contract, if not a deposit paid. We've all gotten burned there before, where we've wasted a discovery meeting and then they decide not to go ahead with the project.
Oh yeah, I got flashbacks. I'm not joking. One in particular, especially.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. So I hope that answered Joe's question. It's a big question, lots of detail there, but hopefully that was helpful. So now we're going to talk to Carman about not marketing your site yourself, getting somebody else to. So let's jump into that interview. Warning, the following interview contains explicit content.
Oh, my freaking ears!
I'd like to welcome Carman Pirie to Agencies Drinking Beer. He's here live in the studio recording with us. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here and happy to be drinking beer per normal.
Yes. So Carman runs an agency called Kula Partners out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, and they are primarily an inbound marketing agency. But Carman's, you're always fun to talk to, always have something interesting, sometimes controversial things to say.
Well, time will tell, I guess. Let's not overpromise.
Well, there's one thing that you mentioned you wanted to talk about today, and it's a really interesting subject because, conventional wisdom would say that when you own an agency as the owner, your primary job is to market and sell it. But you say that it's of course you need to sell as an agency owner, but marketing you should actually maybe leave to somebody else. So I'd love to hear what your take is on that.
Yeah. So I've really excuse me. And I should say, like I should preface this by saying I don't feel like I have all the answers. I don't think we're quite at the Crispin Porter status yet or anything of the sort. So I think we still have a lot to learn. But nevertheless, I guess the one thing that I would say is, agency owners shouldn't do their own marketing. And the reason they shouldn't do their own marketing is because they suck at it. And I know that sounds a little awkward for agency owners to think about because they're paid for their marketing advice day in and day out, and they're actually very talented marketers. But I think they're too close to their own agency to market it effectively. And their closeness to it and their intimate knowledge of it leads them to overthink it and to not package it in a way that is actually able to be bought. And I think somebody who is more focused on business development and essentially getting the right leads into the door is making that decision is a pretty key part, I think, of really getting the agency model to work in this day and age. And when I look around at friends of mine or other colleagues or what have you, I know own agencies of various different sorts or descriptions and various different expertise. It's a consistent theme that I see as being a challenge of theirs. They don't get themselves into the right conversations. They inevitably get into situations that are half-assed or misaligned with their agency, but they're agency owners, so they want to be of service, they want to help, and then they find a way to take on a bad gig, a bad client, a little project that's only kind of partially profitable, and they don't take the hard lens on it that a biz dev person will take. So I think agency owners ought to sell, but I don't think they ought to be that marketer, that front ending of the engagement.
So let's just kind of, I guess, define the terms a little bit here, because I totally hear what you're saying, but there could be at least blurred minds in at least in the ears of our listeners. So when you say marketing person, at least what I think of is the person who isn't as much the face-to-face or even the phone sales or doing pitches or even really doing like proposals or something like that. They're more of the higher up the sales funnel, writing content on the blog, maybe doing podcasts, doing email drip campaigns and stuff like that. But then when I think biz dev is more somebody who doesn't do that as much, they're more of the person, making the phone calls, going to networking events, if, people do that still, and pitch meetings, proposals, more of the lower end of the sales cycle. Do you agree with that, or do you mean something else?
Well, look, I found that I think small agencies kind of need one person to do both, probably, or at least that's what we found. So I think, yes, you need obviously as a small agency, you need to get focused on what it is you're doing. What is it that you're offering? What business are you in? And the more you can package that and make that unique and singularly focused, I think the better off you are. And that biz dev person that you hire, that marketing person you hire, is responsible for generating the content that will lead to the thought leadership that you're looking for in your particular segment. That, if you're doing it correctly, ought to generate a source of inbound leads. And I'm not talking about just inbound marketing because I'm an inbound marketing agency, But, frankly, if you're a professional services firm selling expertise, which an advertising agency or any agency ought to be, then you should be doing it in a way that is structured to receive inbound leads rather than push outbound. And I think that person's role ought to be split between creating the content and the relationships, etc., that generate those inbound leads, and then filtering those inbound leads, finding out which inbound leads actually fit with the agency, doing those initial discovery calls, actually having the initial contact with the customer, and sussing out, is there budget? Is there a project here? Is there a retainer here? Is there something that's worth pursuing? And it's at that point that I believe the owner should be engaged.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would too.
What's your take, Captain Biz?
I think it's, anytime you can have, the inbound is always, especially qualified inbound leads are ones that make, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
They will ask the harder questions, right?
Yeah.
Your biz dev person will say, well, do you have budget? I've sat in a meeting with my biz dev person, and I've watched him and listened to him ask a prospect, well, do you guys want to grow, or are you just fucking around? And I was like, holy fuck, I would not say that. Like, what the fuck are you saying?
Awesome.
But he's like, he just looked at it and said, well, like, I don't really get what you're trying to do here. Like, why wouldn't you do it this way? It just looks like you're really kind of misaligned out of the gate here. Like, are you really serious about this, or are you just playing around with it? Like, and why will he ask those questions? Well, you could say, well, he'll ask those questions because he's good. Well, no, because I like to think I'm pretty good too, but I wouldn't ask those questions. Yeah. He'll ask those questions because he cares, but it's an old negotiator, Herb something or other. I don't even know his last name, but he's a famous guy in the interwebs. You can check him out. I don't know. If you Google this quote, you will find him. He says, "You have to care, but not that much."
Yeah,
right?
he's removed somewhat from the agency, right?
Yeah.
To some degree.
Yeah,
he doesn't
if we
own
don't
it.
get that client, he's going to be talking to somebody else tomorrow. It's no big deal. The agency owner thinks that the mortgage rises and sets on that one customer in that one moment for some godforsaken reason that we can't get out of our heads. Mm-hmm. But that biz dev person is enough removed from it that they care, but not that much. And they also care about alignment with the firm, because they want to make sure that the projects they bring in can get moved through the firm quickly, so the person's happy, so that they can bring more projects into the firm. So it's interesting. They're almost intrinsically motivated not to bring shit that isn't aligned with what the firm's good at. Whereas agency owners are the best at bringing on projects that the firm's not good at doing.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Like, holy fuck. Like, we're a great inbound marketing agency. On occasion, we can design a great logo. But if you want a good logo done, if you're Nike and you're wanting to redo your logo, don't call Kula Partners. Fuck off. We don't want to do your business. We're going to suck at it. Nike should go to somebody else to redo their logo. And they should come to us for inbound marketing, if that's their thing. But I can't imagine why it would be. But nevertheless, you see my point. But agency owners, we're really fucked up people. We want to be good at everything. We fancy ourselves as being great at everything. And in fact, that's where we get all of our ego and all of our juice, is that we can jump into any situation and fucking make it happen.
Yeah.
Right? And
the client goes, I've got $10,000 and I need to do a print campaign. Can you do our print campaign? We're like, well, why not? I'll take your $10,000. We can do print. Why not?
Not only that, but we're going to throw a little social in, and we think some TV might work too if we just find a friend who's looking to get this ad. It's amazing what we'll do. Whereas the biz dev person is like, no, like, you're an inbound marketing agency. You need people who need content, lead gen, increase the number of unique visitors to the site, need a new website, etc. That's what we do. That's what we're going to fucking get good at, and that's who we're going to bring in the door. It's just a practical way of thinking.
Yeah, but we had a sales guy. And
I was just going to say that.
There's a difference between in agencies, often the account people or directors are salespeople.
Right.
Let's face it. So there's a crossover there. So they do care more, like you said. But we hired a guy who was strictly a sales guy, and it was a friggin' nightmare. He did exactly what you're saying.
Well, yeah.
I love it.
Okay, so there's one person in particular that we hired, and the kind of a, sad to say, used car salesman type. wanted, same thing, everything in the door. Do you guys do video production? Oh, sure, we can do that. Just wanted the billables in and wanted the commission because, he's partially paid by commission. But I don't think he was unique either because we had other kind of contractor types, which I know is probably a mistake, who were outside maybe in other cities selling for us, and they never really brought in anything.
Let me be clear. I don't think this person's job is to sell. I think this person's job is to qualify, is to get that inbound interest. Like, your job is to coach them and teach them how to get that inbound interest. And frankly, they'll be better at that than you will be at some point because, again, you have to care, but not that much. And then I think they're supposed to filter that inbound interest and get it to a point where you have a marketing qualified lead that turns into a sales qualified lead, has budget, has some urgency. And that's when the agency owner comes in to close the business. And the agency owner at that point has to be disciplined to not close business that isn't aligned with the firm. There's no question about that. But I think over a very short time, you'd be able to get your biz dev person aligned with the idea that they're only going to be bringing stuff in that's really aligned with the firm. I mean, if they're looking at their job long term, I think they'll get that the firm's going to have to put the shit through the goose at some point. But that's when it's time to bring the agency owner in. And I think one of the reasons for, or I guess one of the benefits of that, is I think it really helps elevate the agency owner. So as the agency owner, if you've been in that sales process at that point for 4 or 5 weeks, and you've been grinding to get that first phone call or that first meeting, it's hard to position yourself as the expert that's coming in to deliver the final answer, right? But if the biz dev person has been working with that customer to try to figure out if they're a possible fit, and then that customer gets through a couple of gates, or that prospect gets through a couple of gates, and the guy says, you know what, or the girl says, you know what, you are a great fit. I think it'd be great to set up a half-hour phone call with the owners in order to discuss possibly working together. Well, all of a sudden, I mean, you're coming in and you're put on a pedestal as you walk in the room almost, right?
Bringing in the big guns.
And you can close, you don't have to get fancier than you were yesterday. Closing business in the exact same way you would have yesterday all of a sudden gets doubly more effective because of the position that you're arriving at and really the polarity of the sale at that point, right?
That's smart. I like that.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, the owner's just, they're just grinding, and the clients can tell. They can smell a bit of desperation, right? And I think every owner's been in the position where they need to make fucking payroll in 2 weeks and they're hoping for a deposit invoice on a new project.
Especially in a market like this, let's face it.
Yeah, I think in challenged markets, I mean, we're lucky in that most of our clients come from across North America now. We're fairly distributed from a market dynamic point of view, but I agree. The pressure's always there.
Even more so if you're in a small market.
Yeah. But even big markets mean just big competition too, right?
Yeah.
I don't think everybody ought to assume that just because you're an agency in Chicago, you're making bank. Fuck, there's a lot of agencies in Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some are good, some aren't.
Yeah, that's oh man, I had a point right at the tip of my tongue.
Kyle's drinking more beer than I am. It should be noted.
Time for bourbon.
It kind of reminded me, and there must be some psychological reason behind that. It must be exactly what you're talking about. Because I remember when I was in Florida being sold timeshares, it was the same thing. You had your guy who was like drove you around and showed you the places, and I'm like, I just want my universal tickets, man. I'm not interested in buying. But then he wasn't a very good qualifier because he still brought me to the big guns. But then finally when we sit down and I'm like, look, I really don't want a timeshare. But then he was like, oh, well, let's, he basically brought in his closer, who was this like boisterous New Yorker. Yeah. But I'm sure that works in a lot of cases, especially if the prospect is interested. And there must be like sales 101 is have like your opener and your closer, right?
It's a bridge. They bridge it over to the person who's usually, they call them the finance person usually. They do that in car dealerships too.
Right, yeah.
And that's your closer.
But I guess my more of a question would be, so you've got your opener, which is this, somebody who plays like an employee role in the agency. They're not the owner. And they're qualifying leads, like you say. What about the stuff that's, I guess, higher up in the funnels? So, again, when I'm thinking marketing, I'm thinking, the agency owner should be or is generally out there talking to people, maybe doing some public speaking and speaking at conferences or that sort of thing. Do you still think that the agency owner should be doing that high up the funnel marketing stuff?
I guess I personally I do a bit of public speaking, paid speaking. I have never found that to be an amazing source of new business. It's been a good source of additional speaking gigs, but it hasn't always translated into new business in the big flood that you might like. And I must admit, I think I got wore out of the chicken dinners and networking circuit a while ago in some previous jobs. Like, I think I just done it so much that I've decided that I don't like it, and I'm not going to do it unless I have to. So I don't go to a lot of that shit. But I do think it's still up to the agency owner to develop those relationships to the extent that they're required, and to be that face. But I think a lot of what you can do to market your agency in terms of thought leadership and positioning of the firm can be done with blog posts, with guest articles, guest blog posts, webinars, whatever it is. I mean, whatever the marketing vehicle is, I think it can be done in a way that is somewhat detached from the owner. And frankly, it ought to be long-term. Your goal as an owner long-term isn't to have all of the people coming to you because you're there. Like, fuck, I want people buying Kula Partners, and I want them to not even know that I exist.
Really?
Because a strong management team and a strong team that can deploy and run those programs and drive success for clients long-term, that's not only the best agency for our clients and the most repeatable for new clients, but it's also the best business asset that I as a business owner can own. Because then any other business owner could buy it from me and let that agency continue to run and generate them profit. But until then, you're on, as an agency owner looking to exit, if ever you wanted to do that, you're on a fucking 5-year earn out and
because you're
basically on a 10-year plan to be somebody's bitch.
Yep, it's true.
Right?
Yeah. Bang on.
You got to create something of value at the end of the day. And basically that means working yourself out of... I think an agency owner's job is to work themselves out of a job.
I feel similar with our business at some point,
Yeah?
Well, you have to work yourself out of a job.
Yeah.
To the point where what you do is own it.
Well,
and oversee the fact that it's running profitably and properly.
Yep.
But man, if you're integral into the day-to-day of that organization, it's going to be hard to get out of it if ever you want to do that. Now, Kula Partners isn't on an exit strategy kind of model. That's not what we want to do. Well, it's not that we wouldn't exit, but it's not that that's our mindset going in, I guess.
Yeah.
But what we do know is that if we create the best business to own and the best business to be a part of, it will also be the best business to sell.
Yeah.
Those three things are perfectly aligned.
Well, because one of the best things about an agency business is unlike a startup or something that's kind of in a lot of ways designed to exit, unless it's not very, you make that conscious choice.
Right.
Agency businesses lend themselves well to lifestyle businesses. And the nice thing about lifestyle businesses is, you might not make $100 million in a year, but you can, if you've built those systems, you can, go away for a month to the Bahamas and know that it's running smoothly in the back, right?
But actually, I'm going to disagree. I think, when you say a lifestyle business, I mean, you're kind of, okay, so if you have a business that's truly able to run without you, where you can go away and you can be asleep or not, you can be driving cars on a racetrack or swimming on the beach or doing whatever, and the cash is just coming in. If you truly have that, then that's an asset that you can sell to somebody else, right? Yeah. But most agency owners, when they say they have a lifestyle business, what they mean is this is a business that isn't of interest to anybody else, but it's one that's okay for me to own. It works for me. And I think what they mean by that is that, sure, maybe they can take 2 or 3 weeks vacation, but they can't take 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And they also can't, it's still part of them. They can only be away from it for a while.
Yeah.
that's I think I think the idea of viewing agency life as a lifestyle business detracts you from the goal of what you ought to have as an agency owner, which is to create a sustainable business that can exist without you, to create an asset that's sellable. And it's not that you want to sell it. It's that the understanding that if you create an asset that's sellable, then that will be your best lifestyle ever.
Yeah. And maybe the problem is that most agencies don't build it as an asset to sell. They build it as something they always stay a part of. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it when I worked in different agencies, and who knows, maybe I did it too, but I'm too blind to my own mistakes. But I've seen agency owners that actually were kind of shitty at what they do. Like, they might have hired good people, but bring them into a project and they'll drop the ball faster than anyone. But they wanted to be part of the projects. They wanted to have input. I want to, sit in the brainstorming meetings and come up with ideas. And I remember thinking, it would actually be better if you just, went and took a flight down south and just kept all the people here running it. Because we know, what I mean? Other than maybe bringing in sales, we know what we're doing here. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's why we always consider an agency business a lifestyle business, because most agency owners aren't building it as something, they're not trying to essentially write themselves out of a job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they see a lot of themselves in the output of the agency, I suppose. Maybe that's it. But I guess that let's back up a little bit. I think a key transition for people to make in their professional lives, if they choose to make it, is the decision to stop succeeding through what you do and to start succeeding through what others do. And so if you think that the only way that you have success at the end of the day is based upon what you've created that week, what you've gotten done, and then it leads you to taking on everything, because nobody can do it as good as you can, and it leads to burnout and all those things. But at some point, a good manager, a good leader, needs to understand that they only succeed through others, and through growing the capacity of others, through growing the abilities and aspirations of others, frankly. And I think that if when you choose to make that leap, well, then everything kind of changes in some way, right? Because then you don't need to be involved in the meeting. You can be excited about the fact that somebody was successful in a meeting that a year ago they wouldn't have even had the confidence to walk into, but you were able to coach them and get them there. And if you can't see that as your success, then your business will be inherently held back, I think. Because basically an agency owner can only make money by growing that agency and having more people working for them. I mean, yes, you can grow your rate at some level, and we'd all love to be the agency that charges $1,000 an hour for every person that works for us, but that's not generally reality,
Yeah.
And
people are your product, right?
Yeah, and in some ways, the more the more product, the more profit, right?
Exactly. It's your supply.
It's duplication.
Hiring a person is more supply.
Yeah, a good friend of mine once, and again, as a speaking, somebody who's been paid to speak on occasion, maybe he thought that I was getting a little too much of my ego caught up in that. I don't know, but I remember him saying, "Carman, just remember this: there's of the 99, of all the people that get to be millionaires, 99 point some odd % of them, the ones that, apart from the ones that don't inherit it or what have you, they get to be millionaires because they have people working for them. A few of them are famous authors or really iconic speakers or highly sought after consultants or athletes, like individuals who can contribute that. But everybody else has a bunch of people working for them, and that's how they got there."
We talked about that in the last podcast. Remember, we talked about Sam Walton's book.
Yeah.
I read that back in the 80s, actually. And I'm not a big Walmart fan, but I am of Sam Walton. I mean, he died the wealthiest person in the world way back when. And duplication of effort, that's all he talks about in the whole book. It's duplication of effort, getting people that you trust. And he made a portion of every little screwdriver that was sold, or, it was just brilliant back then for me, as getting out of university and thinking, whoa,
But now there's a key question. Okay, so you said hire people you can trust. And I think that's the biggest hurdle to an agency owner being able to create a team that can essentially replace any role they would have in the agency. So if we even bring it back to the original discussion, which is should you hire or should you do marketing and sales all on your own as the agency owner, and you say no, be involved, especially at the lower end of the sales cycle or funnel.
Bottom of the funnel.
Bottom of the funnel, I should say. But not the opener or not the person qualifying leads. So how do you find that person that you can trust? Where do you look for them? What skills do you look for? How do you go about hiring them or putting out the word that you're looking for that person? That, I think, is a big challenge that people would face.
Well, I think most agency owners are in the business of at least figuring out how to hire marketers, right? So find a really good one, but then give them one rule, and that one rule is if they work for clients, they're fired. So
what do you mean work for clients?
Every agency has a push to do client work, and there's always client deadlines, and there's always ship dates that need to be met, and checks that need to be cashed, and bills that need to be sent. And the only way to get away from that, I feel, and get your own marketing done and actually focus on it. Because otherwise, marketing in an agency is a cobbler's kids, right? They never have shoes on their feet. And it's the same way here. The only way to do it is to say, if you do client work, you're fucking fired. Your job is to market the agency and to sell the agency. And again, they don't close the deals. You got to keep that closing away from them, I feel. Because if you put them in charge of closing, I think it removes the owners a little too far, especially as a small owner. Small, mid-size. I mean, Maybe that's some self-reference criteria, and I'm open to being wrong there, but that's how I feel about it right now.
Yeah.
But hire a good marketer. I mean, how do you do it? You hire a good marketer, and then you let them do your shit, and then get out of their fucking way. Realize, look, there's blog posts that are written that I wouldn't write them that way. There are emails that go out that I wouldn't write them that way. There's things that are said on phone calls that I wouldn't say them that way. But if I shut my mouth and I listen and I watch how people react, I have to admit that it works. And it's people getting shit done in a different way, but in a way that's still successful for me. And that's the only way that's scalable.
And if it wasn't working, of course, you'd have something to say about it. If clients weren't coming in.
If it didn't work, then you need to shape it. That's what you're really good at as an agency owner, right? But you can't micromanage too much. I think you need to let people kind of find their own way of doing it.
Yeah.
There's a happy medium there probably, but yeah, I think you're a good guider. You're a terrible person to put in charge of anything. I'm a lazy fucker. I really am not good at doing stuff on deadline. I'll get it done, but I'll leave every deadline to the last minute. Anything I've done that's, whether it's award-winning or successful in the client's mind or whatever, was all done last minute. It was all done under duress. When you came to the last possible second, you couldn't put off work any longer.
That's when the best stuff shines.
I bet, but that's the case. It's the only stuff I do almost, right? I don't know why owners are so willing or so unwilling to recognize how shitty they are sometimes. Just be okay with it, because most agency owners are really good at a couple of things, and mostly what I'm saying is only do those couple of things.
Yeah.
Most agency owners, if they had to close that deal in that last phone call, holy fuck, they're good at it. They know how the agency started. They know why they exist today. They can spin that story. They're usually a good storyteller, right? They know how to ask for the order at the end, usually. They can close the business. And they've been at it for a while, that they're usually at quite an advantage compared to most prospects that might be entering. And all I'm really encouraging agency owners to do is only do that. Spend the rest of your time smoking weed and drinking beer if you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
Then the other time, sit down and sell some stuff that you're really good. Almost think about what you could do in your sleep that you don't have to prep for. And my bet is if you only did that as an agency owner, your agency would be more successful. Scale the rest of it.
Well, and I would think, and maybe this comes in line with drinking beer and smoking weed, but your job is in a sense to build culture in the agency and to make the people around you happy, decide who's part of the team who's really contributing to the culture and buzzwordy. But
Yeah. I think you need to create a culture that attracts, so your job is to sell. Your job is to create a culture that attracts, and you need to keep enough money and cash flow in the bank to keep those things happening. Really.
Now you said that
you need to set the vision as well, of course.
Right.
Yeah. Now you're a marketer by trade. That's what
Sure.
you've done. So you said agency owners actually have no problem finding good marketers because that's what they do.
Well, I'm not saying they don't have a problem at it, but if they have a problem finding good marketers, then it's not just for them. They're having a problem scaling their business overall if they can't find good marketers. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, so when I was co-owner of Headspace, I'm a designer by trade. I went to school for design, so I'm actually really good at interviewing designers, looking at their
Fair
work
point.
and figuring out who would be a good a fit. Not as good with marketers because marketers are hard to find. The ones that you want are usually self-taught. They don't come from they don't have a BA or something. Usually the ones that are formally educated come out of college with I know how to do market research or something, but they're not a blogger who really understands social and
Right.
you know what I mean. SEO is something that they generally don't learn in school. That's a hard role to find. Do you think?
I guess that's a fair point. I think so. I think number one, then look for some. I think it's helpful to look for somebody with some inside sales experience. Actually, they don't necessarily have to have experience in front of somebody, doing face-to-face sales, but I think inside sales experience is really helpful. And I think you do need to look. Even if you're an agency that says we do TV ads, that's what we do. We're the number one. I worked with a guy who worked for an advertising agency in South Africa, and we were working at the same agency at the time. And I remember him saying, "I don't know what the fuck we do," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not sure I know either," And he said, "Well," he goes, "back in South Africa," and I forget the name of the agency now. He goes, "We did TV ads. I knew what we did. We did 286 of them last year, 30-second spots. We did fucking TV ads. That's what we produced." So I think that there's, in some ways, as I think about inbound marketing, as an inbound marketing agency, we really needed an inbound marketer. So we're hiring inbound marketers, and we needed an inbound marketer. If you're that TV agency, I guess, in some way, then you need to hire an inbound marketer, but you're probably not used to hiring them.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair point.
That's true.
So I think in some ways, look for somebody with potentially some inside sales experience, and then somebody maybe on that in combination with at least a sensibility towards content marketing and really it's just that scaling up sales one little bit from one to one to one to some in a weird way. Just that person that can do that, and I think that's probably they have some sensibility around social. They're demonstrating some inherent skills or talent around social media.
Yeah, they're not those growth hackers that tout that they're a growth hacker and they've got 79 Twitter followers.
Yeah, it's probably not that. Yeah. And ideally that person, they're coming at you and they already have an inbound marketing certification or something like that. That'd be awesome. But I don't think that's necessarily critical. I think even that TV agency, that fictitious TV agency that we're speaking of, they should be writing blog posts, doing webinars, hosting open office hours, whatever it is that helps their clients produce better TV ads. I think sometimes marketers and agency owners get away from the product that they produce, and we grow brands. Yeah, fuck off, you grow brands. A lot of shit grows brands, and you're only responsible for a small part of it. And you designed the logo and maybe came up with a name, and we've all been there, and we've all written the documents about the tenets of brand this or that. But the fact is the fact that it's the business that builds the brand over time, not the agency. The agency can only help and assist. I think it helps the agency if they can get their head focused around what it is that they actually deliver and not get too high-minded about it.
Yeah.
we're rambling now. But
No,
I
I
think
love
that's
it.
part of the
That's good.
podcast.
Really good,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah. So lots of good stuff here. I think we're, 37 minutes in?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up. I mean, I really appreciate you coming in to especially talk in person. Like I mentioned, I've wanted to have you on for a while, and the opportunity was there, so I appreciate you jumping in.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure. It's always good to chat with you guys, and I'm really interested in. It's funny. I think we've evolved. We've known one another for a long time, and I think knowing you folks as agency owners, but then knowing you as startup founders, it's been an interesting evolution. So I appreciate the connection.
Cool. Well, thanks again, and I'm sure there's like a million other things we can talk about. Maybe you'll be on the show again.
Look, our pleasure.
You'll have part 2.
Yes. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
So yeah, I love chatting with Carman. He's always interesting. Always has something provocative to say.
It was a treat to have someone local too, and actually have them in the office recording this live.
In the recording studio, you mean?
Oh, sorry. Yes, the studios of Proposify.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to close off for now. We just wanted to ask you, if you haven't already, please leave a rating on iTunes and a review. And also, we want to know your questions. What are you struggling with? What are your challenges? What are your questions that you have when it comes to running an agency? And record them, send them to Kyle, Kyle, at proposify.biz, and we'll either answer it ourselves, and if we can't, we'll have one of our guests who are smarter and know more than us answer your question. But we want to hear from you. And that's all I've got for now.
Later.
Goodbye.